The Mazda CX-5 is part of the fierce mid-size SUV segment. There's so many competitors in this class of car that you really have to be special to stand out. So does this CX-5 have what it takes? Well, that answer, plus many other things that you should consider, is coming up here on The Drive Guide. So I think the biggest reason why this car stands out to its competition is the interior. This car has such a polish and a refinement that I don't think you can find in cars in this class. Almost every surface you touch feels great in the hands. All the buttons feel really tactile. I'm currently using the radar assisted cruise control right now, and we're going through a construction zone, so the speed has gone down to 50, and I'm following the car in front of me that's doing just over 50, but he's slowing down now. His brake lights are on, so I'm slowing down too. And then as soon as we get out of this little zone, I'll be able to pick up speed at the same rate that he is. This car also does have lane departure assist, and I got to drive around in a CX-9 earlier in the summer, and it also had a lane departure assist system, but the two systems work differently. In this car, if you're going over a line, the steering wheel vibrates, and it's just an unpleasant feeling for you to then move back into the lane. But in the CX-9, if you were veering off, you get a slight tug from the wheel that draws you back in. And I much prefer the system in the CX-9, and I'm surprised it's not the exact same system here, as they're both pretty similar cars. You'd think they'd have the exact same technology behind them as well. One letdown I have with the interior is the seats. So first off, ventilated seats aren't available at all. So if you need a car with ventilated seats, I'm afraid you're going to have to walk away from this one. But the big problem for me is that for my long legs, I feel as though there isn't enough seat bottom. So there's quite a distance between where the seat ends and where I rest my knees. And as a result of that, my legs get pretty tired after an hour's long journey. But saying that, I am 6'4", and not every car is built for me. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I do really like the Mazda Connect system, and it is standard with the CX-5. You have to pay extra if you want to get the navigation, but every car will have the 7-inch touchscreen and these dedicated buttons down here. And the buttons feel great in the hand. It's all very straightforward, and the touchscreen, when you're at a stop, is pretty responsive. With the large door mirrors, there is a whisper of wind noise as you're driving along at highway speeds, but it's really nothing to stress about. This car feels great on the highway in terms of its interior refinement and isolation. The 2012 Mazda CX-5 was the first of the Mazdas to employ their Kodo design language, and with this refresh, we get a little more of an indication where Mazda will be going in terms of design. For whatever car comes next, whether it be the next generation Mazda 3 or the next generation Mazda 6, whatever it is, you can pretty much be sure they're all going to follow a very similar look to this car, which is going to be a great thing because this car looks really sharp. Right, so we're about to turn off the highway now to see how this car performs in the twisties, to get a feel of how rewarding of a driving experience this car is. But to sum up the time on the highway, pretty good all around. I think the issue with the seats though is more sort of my issue, and as a result of that, I don't think you can go wrong with this car if you were planning to do a long distance trip. Another big point that would separate the CX-5 from its competition is its driving dynamics. So we're going to change the car into sport mode now. Okay, first thing that really stands out is that the gears are held at a much higher RPM. Throttle is very responsive. It is only a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated engine, so you don't have to worry at all about turbo lag. And you know, 187 horsepower, 185 pound-feet of torque. It isn't neck-breaking. You don't think you're going all that fast until you look at your speedo and go, oh my God, I'm doing it that speed. And that's also a testament to the refinement of this car as well. Of what I was saying earlier with the gears being held at a higher RPM, you can also hear the downshifts are much more aggressive. They don't feel it. When you're stepping on the brakes going into a corner, you can really hear those gears jumping down. So this car has something called G-vectoring control, and this is something that Mazda implements on a few of its vehicles, not all of them, but with it, it limits the amount of torque that is directed between the front wheels. So if you were to pin the throttle mid-corner, you can feel the torque being split slightly between the wheels. And the reason they do this is so you can corner tighter. The sport mode in this car is very similar to how it operated in the CX-9, in the way that it didn't hinder the car's character, but it enhanced it. With this car, I don't think it's as dramatic as a gap between the normal and the sport mode. The CX-9, there felt like a bigger difference between those two settings. I think it would have to really come down to the turbo in that car, how in the sport mode it was ready to dial up faster. I think it's now time to leave the twisties and now head into town to see how this car performs in an in-town setting. So we're in town now, and the things that need to be revealed to you is that the steering is a little heavier than I was originally anticipating. You'd think that this kind of car, they'd want it to be as light and most assisted as they could, but the steering is the right kind of heavy for me. But saying that, when you do switch into sport mode, it lightens it ever so slightly. In all honesty though, you're probably not going to notice it. The ride quality through town is pretty good too. You don't get much intrusion with the bumps and the cracks and so on. All-round visibility is okay. You do have that huge blind spot there in the back, but you do have blind spot monitoring assist that shows up in the wing mirrors and the heads-up display to let you know if there is something in your blind spot. Gearbox is just so smooth too, you never notice it. It's just seamless. So I now think it's time to pull over into a quiet spot so we can break down the interior features and the practicality of this CX-5. First thing I want to know about the back row of the CX-5 is just how wide these doors open. Makes it very easy to get in and out of the car. When we set the passenger seat for the same position as my driving position, you can see I have a little bit of knee room, a little bit of headroom, but a ton of foot room. You can really move your feet around. You've got a lot of freedom there. And here in the center console, you can fold it down and you will reveal you have two USB hubs as well as two cup holders. But if you go with the top of the line GT model, you also get heated seats for the outside seats. And as a result of that, if you wanted to go on a skiing holiday with 3 of your friends, you can fold this centerpiece down and have all the space you need to carry your skis and snowboards, and then every passenger can have a hot bum. I see this CX-5 the same way that a lot of people look at the Golf GTI, a car that can satisfy your every need. And I say this because this car is very practical, it's well made, should be reliable, and if you want to have some fun in the corners, this car can deliver. But the biggest difference between something like a GTI and this CX-5 is that if you need a car that has some light off-roading capability, then you desperately need to look at this car. So saying all of that, I do think this car is best suited for in-town driving, as it should satisfy your every desire. So this has been my review of the CX-5. I thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you can like, share, and subscribe, and I hope to see you again on The Drive Guide.